Hello, this is Alex Burkett, and you are listening to the Long Game Podcast. In this episode, I'm chatting with Logan Freeman. Our conversation started off with the seismic changes in SEO, and it ended with the state of LinkedIn thought leadership. In between those points, we covered an absolutely sweeping range of topics, starting with GEO, Generative Engine Optimization, and the shifting definition of what it means to rank. Also, the parallels between modern SEO and 1980s billboard advertising, and how SEOs are evolving into modern-day product marketers and digital PR strategists in addition to their existing roles. We talked about attribution in an LLM-dominated world, shared playbooks for brand perception management across AI surface areas, and explored Logan's approach to creative digital PR campaigns, which, yes, did include a viral study involving fecal matter in festival tables. Logan is the global head of SEO at ManyChat, where he's not only redefining how SEO functions within a company, but also spearheading modern content and PR strategies that resonate in both traditional search engines and AI-driven discovery systems. He's known well for his wit on LinkedIn, unfiltered takes on the state of marketing, and years of experience running creative, high-velocity digital PR, content, and SEO campaigns. Without further ado, here is my conversation with Logan Freeman. Maybe because your perspective is you've got a long history of working in SEO at different companies. And I'm sure even at ManyChat, things have changed since you started working there. Like the past 2 years feels like the most tumultuous time period I've ever experienced in SEO. Some people relate to it as like when search first came out as a channel, which I wasn't around then. But what have you seen changing from your vantage point?
In SEO in general, there's this real push towards GEO and capturing AI search in general. A lot of boards are pushing this. A lot of C-level execs are pushing, and they don't fully understand the context of what AI search is currently. Right now, we're not seeing a ton of traffic behind it. But what's nice is a lot of SEOs in the industry are able to, like you were saying, take that. And because of what we're optimizing for AI search, for GEO, is helping out with traditional SEO. It's giving SEO more headcount. It's giving SEO more attention under the background of AI search.
Because right now, the way I look at it too is like humans need stories to bind each other, right? Like it's like money is this agreed upon narrative. It's like, paper money isn't real, right? Or like Bitcoin or whatever. And this can read cynically, and I don't mean it cynically, but there's a new story that is very exciting to executives and to marketers. Whereas with SEO over the past, let's say 2 to 4 years, there's been ups and downs and like kind of volatility. But I would say that over the last 2 years, particularly, there was kind of a fading of interest. Like it was kind of a question mark. It's like, is this the propitious channel that it used to be? Like if I pour the efforts in, is it worth my efforts? And I think a lot of people got disillusioned by that story. And then over time, you started to see the referral traffic charts from AI. And to your point, the numbers are small, but for the first time in a long time, they're going up and to the right. So I feel like that plays into it. But currently, there's probably a strong overlap between GEO practices and SEO. Like I would imagine that like there's substantial overlap. Like how do you differentiate the two from both like a consumer behavior standpoint, but then also like a tactical standpoint?
Right now, this is really difficult. And the way that I look at traditional SEO versus GEO is when you think of SEO and you think of casual search terms that people would be searching, they're going to say, best SEO blog, for instance. That is a very traditional Google search term. So you can optimize for those keywords to try to show up for that search term. AI search, GEO, whatever you want to call it, is going to be different. People are no longer going to search for that. They are going to say, I am this person and I am looking for this. And it's going to be very hyper localized to who they are as an individual. And so it's trying to answer all those latent questions that they're not necessarily asking, but would be important for the search. And that's what AI is focused on right now.
Is that related to the query fan out thing? Or what when you say like latent, what do you mean by that?
So it's what I look at it as is questions that wouldn't traditionally be asked to a traditional search engines, but would be asked to a LLM, for instance, something like ChatGPT. People are going more personal with the searches. The best way to think about it is, when you're talking to your grandma and your grandma gets on Google search and she types out a full question for exactly what she's looking for. That's what people...
She's ahead of her time.
Exactly. That's what people are doing right now on LLMs. And it's wonderful, but it's also terrifying to SEOs because we're trying to figure out exactly how do we show up for results that are that hyper specific. In our world, when it comes to ManyChat, we deal with content creators. And so beforehand, it could be how to maximize engagement for content creators. And that's traditional SEO. With LLMs, people are now turning around and saying, I'm a content creator with 50,000 followers. My vertical is the finance space. How should I best maximize the amount of viewers I have or the amount of followers? Mm-hmm. And so it's trying to separate those different types and also trying to answer both at the same time. We don't want to go too general because we might not capture that LLM searcher. But we also don't want to go too hyper specific because we might lose the plot of general SEO. So there's like this delicate dance that we're doing currently where we're trying to make generalized content, but also what we're personally doing is we're implementing FAQ pages on every blog article. And we're putting in schema those latent questions that AI could be searching for. So that way we're maximizing both searchability on Google and Bing, but also maximizing the ability for LLMs to actually reference us.
So you're still starting with the same vantage point from a topic and keyword research perspective, given that it's still a viable channel. So your website strategy is still architected with that lens, but then you're embedding, let's say people also ask and sort of semantically related questions in the article that would be, let's say like, I don't know your space, obviously, but like, if you're aiming for like, what is marketing automation? You have obviously got to have this like pillar page or definitional page, but then maybe in the bottom section, you've got all these like really, really specific questions around marketing automation. Is that kind of the play?
Correct. And answers that would be for those people. What we've done research-wise is we found out that this is also fascinating, and this could change, right? 2 days from now, we could see a completely different behavior from GEO. But for right now, AI is not only looking to answer the question that the user is asking, they're looking for what the user is not asking as well, and trying to find those answers and provide them with everything that they're looking for all in one space. And so AI is consistently trying to figure out what is the human story, what are they thinking in their mind, what are they not thinking to ask, but they might be interested in to give them the best experience. Because at the end of the day, these LLMs are just trying to make you happy. That's what they're programmed to do. And the best thing in the world, right? You get something you wanted but never thought to ask for. Great.
Yeah. Sometimes they're a little bit too sycophantic. I have to be like, no. Tell me the truth. You can't handle the truth.
Exactly. I sometimes will get angry and do the same thing. I'm like, no, I want the truth. This actually matters to me. Please don't like kiss my butt here.
Yeah, exactly. So we're kind of circling around what I think is one of the most important problems to solve in this paradigm. I don't know that this was always the right way to do things, but it's certainly the common way, which is the keyword being the atomic unit of an SEO strategy, right? That kind of implies intent. It implies a certain page and format, and that's how you structure the basis of your website strategy. We have associated search volume metrics, arguments about how accurate that is, right? Especially for nascent terms. When you say, appearing for a highly specific phrase, like, I'm a 10-person agency looking for a CRM that I'm not actually worried about being visible for that or creating a piece of content that quote unquote ranks for that. I'm worried about whether that's worth pursuing strategically. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like we don't have prompt volume or I don't know. There's some tools that say they have prompt volume. I don't know how you trust that, but, how do you know that that's not something that your company is very insularly focused on? And it's not like, is it something that your customers are actually searching for is kind of the question that I'm asking.
So I'm trying to not maximize for that specific term. I'm trying to maximize for every specific term. And so that's where it's interesting. I'm focusing on the generalized term and then answering questions here and there that I think people might be searching for and hoping that AI just takes it and spreads it across the board to every specific term connected with the generalized term. Mm-hmm. I'm also not looking at things under a keyword focus. I'm looking under a content cluster focus. What
Like a topic focus?
Correct, topics wise. And so I think that's going to be where the market actually shifts into. And we, of course, map out our keywords to our topics. But I think eventually we're just going to be focusing on generalized topics. And that will transfer over into the world of GEO, the future per se.
Mm-hmm. I would have to imagine that voice of customer and first party data matters a lot in this world, given that a lot of the queries are going to be obfuscated unless the platforms do offer some sense of data. It's kind of more important to understand how people reach you in the first place and kind of reverse engineer that journey. And then there's some like synthetic queries, right? The query fan out kind of model. But it seems like the model now is like it's more important to actually own like first party insights about your audience than it was before.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I think that, for all of history with SEOs, I think SEOs are a weird mixture of content people, digital PR people, and PMMs. Like, we understand our users. We should understand our user base more than almost anyone else does in the company. The only way to effectively do any type of topic or keyword research is understanding your user base. And so I think that's going to be, it was important and it still is important, but it will get more important over time.
And you think under that like archetype model, the content, the digital PR, and the PMMs, it seems like that relates more to the PMM, like being like a product marketer, really thinking about who you're solving for and what your differentiated messaging is around that kind of problem. It seems like that's more important now than it used to be in
Correct.
SEO.
Yes. It's not as simple as just looking at search terms anymore. Also, there's not really any good GEO tools out there. There's a lot of tools in the market. I would say weekly, I get someone in my LinkedIn inbox saying, "Hey, we work with heads of SEO and we have this new product." And then I check the product out and it's the most generic, non-actionable information possible. And great, you have a tool. I love the fact that we're building tools, but none of this information is useful at this point.
What are you using to track performance as it relates to AI? And that could be, KPIs from the past. Like they don't necessarily need to be changing. But what are you using to monitor performance? Right
now, we're tracking, and this is very basic. Fingers crossed that Google actually splits off organic traffic from Gemini traffic, which they said that they are going to do. But right now, I'm checking and I'm tracking referral traffic coming to our page directly from LLMs. So from ChatGPT, from Perplexity, and a couple others. And then I'm tracking that growth over time. We're also using some tools like Ahrefs that have some basic AI or GEO tracking in it. But the main thing is referral tracking and then conversions that are coming from those referrals.
The one thing that I wonder is like, or I don't even wonder per se. It's like a lot of the user behavior within these platforms, I would assume is dark traffic. I don't know what term that is, but like dark social, right? Like you don't click through on most like LinkedIn posts. You see like the impression data, but you don't really know if you influence somebody at like IBM or something like that because they didn't like click through on your website. And I would assume that a lot of the influence that happens within ChatGPT or AI mode or whatever doesn't result in that click. So I feel like that's another big attribution problem to solve in this era. And like you could do some self-reported attribution maybe, but is that solved for? Or like, how do you feel about that part?
I don't think this is solved for. I think that it's going to continue being a black box. I joke around with some of my colleagues in the SEO community saying that we're going back to the 1980s with billboard ads, that we really don't know what's going on. We're just hoping and praying. We can figure out if we're maybe showing up for that specific search term on an LLM for that user profile, but there's no way to know if LLMs are turning around on a different user profile that knows information about that user and offering a different answer. Another problem that we're finding is that about 90% of the responses from LLM, specifically ChatGPT, will mention a company name as a solution, but give no link. And so then it's direct traffic.
Direct traffic, exactly.
Then it's direct or branded search.
But you can't parse that out from somebody who didn't discover that within AI. That could be somebody who saw your billboard, literally. Like that could be conflated in the same bucketing in Google Analytics 4.
Correct. Yeah, it's very hard. And so then it becomes an issue with how do you explain this to the board, or how do you explain this to the C-level exec saying, oh, actually, this direct traffic we think is coming from LLMs, or this referral traffic, or not referral traffic, this branded traffic that's just looking up the term of your company is actually coming because of AI. You can do it on the back end, but it's not great data. You can ask the user during sign up, if you have a self-serve product, how did you hear about us? But most people don't answer that realistically anyways. So it becomes an attribution problem. You don't know where this traffic is coming from. You just have to, like, the reason I'm looking at referral traffic is at least I can estimate, all right, we have this amount of people coming in from referral. Maybe there's 9 times that amount that never saw it, and then try to figure out like some equation of, okay, well, maybe this percentage of people are also coming to our page as well. But like I said, we're going back into the 1980s of billboard ads. And it's going to get harder and harder. I think that it's great for SEOs right now. We're getting a lot more attention, but at the same time, our attribution is getting so much more difficult.
I have a lot of thoughts here. So first, like, back to the storytelling, I do think it's challenging to be an SEO because you do need to point to some sort of a scoreboard and say, like, hey, what we're doing is worth investing in. You need at least some quantitative measures. And to your point, we do referral traffic for us and our clients. We do prompt tracking, mostly categorical and based on voice of customer and then categories we want to be known for. So it's very directional. It's like we want to be known for like the best B2B SEO agencies. And obviously there's a lot of nuance and like highly specific, but if we're 50%, 70% visible, that's a good sign. And then we use self-reported attribution. And since I run the sales calls, if they say ChatGPT, I'm always like, can you tell me what prompts? Can you actually walk me through that? And then, I get to learn a little bit more. But my other idea here is I think I could paint a bull case that this is actually a good thing that we have less data. Like for our own marketing quality. It almost feels like we entered this territory over the past 10 years where we had too visible of metrics that made us all converge into the same strategy, and everybody's SaaS blogs looked exactly the same. And without that data, you kind of have to either get creative or care about the customer more, or have some courage in the face of that uncertainty. I don't know if you agree with that, but I feel like you could make a bull case that this is actually like an interesting thing for us.
No, I do agree with it. I think that it's good in the sense that people get to be creative. It's bad in the sense that you have to have a board or C-level exec actually trust your narrative here. But what's interesting is that we get to go back to Mad Men and feel like we're Don Draper again, because it's more about who has more talent, not who has more data now. Mm-hmm. And so there's going to be a lot of testing that moves on, but I do agree with you. I think that it's going to be a really excited time in the SEO community for being able to be creative, testing things out, and just going with your gut, which is terrifying to say. I'm terrified at saying it right now, but also exciting.
I have a couple more questions on that, going with the gut and experimentation. And if you have data here, that's cool. If you have conjecture here, that's cool. People are talking about LLMs.txt files. Like, do you believe in this? Is this a valid thing to do? What do you think about that?
I don't have any data on this. I have some colleagues in the industry that run different SEO tools that suggest that I do it. It's also not hard to implement, so I do it just in case. But I don't know if it's actually helping. There's been some interesting articles that are coming out talking about other pages as well that you can add. There's Cloudflare, where you now can track how often something is scraping. I think Cloudflare is also the company that made it so you can actually turn off LM tracking or scraping. I don't know why you would ever want to do that. I mean, unless you're running a Substack that you want people to pay for, I'm not sure. But I will go ahead and add things like this just in case it does help, but I have no proof of it at the moment. We don't have data
because it's low effort. Like there's no discernible downside. Like you're not going to like get penalized or like tank your traffic by doing so. And like, there's only upside, right?
Correct. Yeah. It doesn't take long. Google's not going to lower my rankings. And it's just something we can throw up on the site very easily.
And another question I have is related to ManyChat. If you can tell me about this, I assume that ManyChat had a pretty solid foundation built across the customer journey and probably a lot of top of funnel traffic. And a trend that I've seen, especially in B2B like MarTech, is this decline in effectiveness of classic tofu assets. If you think about like what is, maybe even sometimes how-to pieces, and anything that was like very informational. The hypothesis being that AI overviews or quick answers in ChatGPT have kind of taken the need for a click out of those queries. So have you seen that play out? And if so, have you shifted your strategy in any meaningful way towards the content formats and funnel stages that are prioritized?
I can tell you that we have shifted. I can't get into the details of what we have shifted, of course. I can tell you what's interesting about ManyChat is we've done a very good job of focusing on the future in the sense that, and this is public information, of course, you can look at our content portfolio and what we've been focusing on the SEO, like SEO community or SEO wise, and actually figure out that we've been focusing on mostly MoFu and BoFu content. Top of the funnel right now is owned in that industry by Sprout Social, Buffer, Hootsuite. And so trying to compete against, I mean, they're Goliaths in the SEO industry. So right now we rank for BoFu content. So I think that I'm playing this delicate game of like not giving away too much information here. But I think that we are focused on the right thing right now. We do have a shift that we are currently making, but I can talk about that another time.
To be determined. Yeah. We'll wait for the case study. I did a deep research on you. Speaking of AI, obviously we know each other, so I knew some topics, but I was like, all right, what has Logan said on the internet that could be interesting to dig into? And you had a quote in some roundup that was like, SEO in 2025 isn't about ranking number one on Google. It's about being the first result an AI model spits out. So it's not just about on page anymore, which I agree with. But can you unpack that? Like, what does it mean beyond the on page? What is informing these results?
I don't remember saying that. But I'm sorry, can you repeat that again? I talk a lot. And
you said it's not just about ranking number one on Google anymore. It's about being the first result that an AI model spits out. It's not just about on page. Which I think the rest of the quote you were referenced in relation to sort of off page and brand mentions also influencing the results. So it's not just like, I write a page for, marketing automation software. It's like, I have to appear in relation to marketing automation software across like different reference points and sources.
Yes. Okay. Awesome. Now I have more context. Yeah. So what the reasons that I was talking about that to answer the question, believe is the question, is what we're seeing is something. Are you familiar with something called LLM perception?
No.
So LLM perception, this is a theory. Nothing has been proven with basically LLMs in general. But LLMs, the way that they're viewing companies, right? And let's say they look at your company. They see you as an SEO agency. Well, if you're trying to rank for things that are outside of SEO agency, even if you have a ton of reasons why AI should rank you, they don't perceive you as anything but an SEO agency. So they'll never show you in results.
So if we wanted to say expand into paid marketing, like that would be an extremely difficult thing for us to do because our vantage point probably is SEO right now.
Correct. And you would have to turn around and change the perception of that LLM. And that LLM is taking results, or it's taking information off of your page, but it's also going to start taking information from outside sources. So if you have a ton of media and press talking about how you're only an SEO agency, that LLM will, even if you're saying something, will think that you're just an SEO agency. So what ends up happening is you're going to have a hard time ranking, if we want to use that term, showing up for LLM search terms. So right now there's kind of this focus on digital PR for LLM perception so you can widen your scope as much as humanly possible. Have the LLM turn around and think that you're perceived as a larger entity than you are. And so you'll be ranked for more. But on top of that, and we were talking about this earlier, the whole idea that brand mentions is massive for GEO. And so backlinks are still good. They're still great for SEO, but you still need brand dimension. So doing as much as you possibly can in the off-page world with digital PR, getting your name out in the media as much as humanly possible is going to be the best thing that you can do for your brand, as long as it's slightly tangentially related to your business.
That is super interesting because it is. We've done many campaigns on this, and it's similar to link building, but it's actually very different in terms of the tactics and approach required. And even the lens by which you're doing it, it's like links. You're thinking, all right, what target URLs do I really want to sculpt? Like what do I want to like get more juice on? Versus this approach seems to be flipping the equation and thinking like, what are the source publications that I want to be mentioned on? I don't give a shit what page they link to. It's just like, Omniscient's name appearing on these 400 sources, right?
Yeah, there's let me see if I can. There's an interesting article about this that was published a couple days ago. I'll have to send it to you afterwards. But there's a new AI search tool for SEOs that kind of figures out what LLMs are actually referencing. And then they can suggest what outlets or what websites to actually get brand mentions on to enable your ability to show up for that search term. Which is a cool tool, and I'm happy that it's out, but it's from a very small company at this point.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I wonder. So I'm sure different companies of different stages have different challenges with AI. A small company that is just coming to market, obviously they're not in the training data, so they're already at a disadvantage. They have to basically build up their presence from nothing, which I assume, has some, like there has to be content creation on their website and messaging, but then there also has to be trust signals from off page and brand mentions. But that's just driving visibility. I would imagine also like later stage companies and even public large corporations who have like a new product coming out. They have to like steer this massive barge and like kind of, it's like they have so much snowball effect, cumulative effect for what they're known for, that it's maybe even harder to shift that perception into a new vector or new lane. So if you don't have to give any examples from ManyChat or anything like that, but let's say you're, a pretty late stage company and you're known really well for personalization, like website personalization. And you're like, all right, well, we built all these cool new products for like really high touch, like ABM, right? And those are like two different semantic concepts. They relate to each other. Like ABM almost always entails personalization, but not vice versa. So what are you going to do there? Are you just like looking at like, all right, like these listicles, these review sites that are compiling ABM software, I need to get on all of those? Are you thinking about like PR more generally? Like, are you putting out press releases? Like, what kind of stuff are you even looking into doing?
The first thing that I would do in that situation, which is going to sound ridiculous to do, go to every LLM and ask the LLM what it perceives the company as, right? Mm-hmm. It will give you its answer. It will let you know, hey, I think this company does X. And then you can figure out, well, if this company came out with this product, would this be strange? Or would this be considered under what you're perceiving? If it's fine, it's like, yeah, this makes sense for this company, you're pretty much good. From my viewpoint, I would do some digital PR and some traditional PR to make sure when the product came out that people knew about it and the LLM saw it. But I think that you're going to have a much harder time if it's a completely separate product. Like, I'll give you an example. If you're Adobe and Adobe all of a sudden started coming out with, I don't know, they started selling backpacks for some reason, right? Completely different business model. It would be very strange. Kind of like what Kodak does, where Kodak is just a name and they sell everything now. LLMs are not going to perceive you as a backpack manufacturer named Adobe. So you're going to have to do a ton of PR and get a ton of people talking on basically every corner of the internet, from Reddit to Quora to digital PR to traditional PR to now Instagram and Meta, because that's now being able to be scraped by both LLM and also traditional search engines. And you need to have one of the biggest PR campaigns that you've ever seen to get people to speak, associating Adobe with now a backpack manufacturer.
In some extremely weird way, this just goes back to your point of like, this is the 80s or the 60s again, where you're just saying you got to create buzz for a product, right? Which is like, advertising and PR and marketing, right? Groundswell, which to an SEO, I would imagine that paradigm is difficult to imagine because it's like you usually have the swim lane of, okay, I manage the website and I can do technical SEO. I work with the content team and I can action on like different content priorities and I can build links. But outside of that, like, do I have is it in my purview to influence like what our PR team and our brand team is working on? That seems like a jump outside of the traditional SEO paradigm.
Yeah, exactly. I'm actually right now at ManyChat, that's what we're doing, right? So I'm actually getting embedded with more and more teams within our company to make sure that SEO has touch points across the board. SEO is no longer just in one swim lane. SEO is slowly becoming everything thanks to LLMs and AI search and GEO. And it's an interesting point to be in because everything is now blending together. And you're having to kind of operate on multiple different fronts. Luckily, my background has been in a lot of link building, so a lot of digital PR and also content marketing. So I'm kind of used to doing the technical side, the content marketing side, and also helping out with PR when it comes to SEO. But I think this is going to be an uphill battle for a lot of people that only focused in, let's say, technical SEO. It's going to be, I think this is where you'll see a lot of true marketers start to shine. People that have developed skills in multiple different channels. And once all of those can come together, you'll start seeing the companies that are actually going to start winning on AI search, GEO.
This is awesome. Yeah, I feel like this is cool. I had a call with a strategist on our team today, a career call, and was kind of explaining this idea of GEO is this jumping point that has like a higher. It's like you have more visibility across like what marketing is, as opposed to this small surface area that, you know, like meta descriptions and internal links still matter, obviously, but like a lot of people had this myopic view, and it's like SEOs are probably, I don't know if you agree with this, probably the best suited to kind of own the intelligence layer of GEO, given that a lot of the metrics and kind of tactics are quite similar. But now, because AI is this massively growing surface area for product discovery, it's like now SEOs can kind of jump up and you know, instead of just being at the company and like having somebody be like, hey, can you fix this page? Like, hey, we have a broken link. Now it's like, hey, like what can we do? Like, should we do more review site work? Should we do more customer marketing? It's like you kind of get a higher level of respect or authority within a company if you're willing to take up that mantle.
Yeah, definitely. It also is interesting because when you think about traditional SEOs, we're not seen as creative people, right? So like it's now giving us the opportunity, and some SEOs are going to love this, right? I love the idea that I'm now getting included in these things where I can actually show off my creative side. We're also going to have other SEOs that hate this. The best way, like the way that I'm looking at AI is it's slowly evolving into, this is terrifying for me to say, but it's slowly evolving into asking a friend or asking your mom or asking your partner for advice on something and then giving you that advice. And just like your friends or mom or partner is getting influenced by a lot of things, so is that LLM. So is that, you know, that whatever you're searching on. And because of that, you now need to market the same way that you would market to a traditional human being to influence it.
It's funny you say that. We didn't plan this, but a major talking point of mine when I give presentations on GEO is actually reused from my old surround sound SEO theory. And I used to use the analogy of going to a cocktail party and asking a group of friends either like what movie should I watch or what TV series should I watch or what book should I read. And you imagine this group of like, you know, maybe one person's a good friend, maybe one person you just met. So there's varying levels of influence within the group. And like maybe one person says, oh, you should read The Power Broker. And now it's on your radar, but it's not like you're not going to run to the bookstore and go buy that book. But if every single person in that small group that you're talking to says the same book or the same movie, all of a sudden it's hit this threshold effect where it's like, oh man, this is ubiquitous. Like this, and to your point, it models much more of how humans naturally give and get product recommendations.
Yeah, exactly. We actually have this is external facing. I can openly talk about this. My CMOs talked about this. We have a theory, what we call a million tiny whispers.
Mm-hmm.
And so with a user journey, they're getting a million tiny whispers about your brand, about your product, and they finally decide to buy. That's most of the user journey. It's very rare that someone hears about a product from one person and goes and purchases it. Instead, it's your surround sound theory, the million tiny whisper theory. But now, instead of trying to influence a person to buy a product, we're now trying to influence an LLM to recommend your product to that person. We're kind of shifting our due diligence off to LLMs as well, which is kind of a strange theory if you think about it, right? The LLM is now the person making my purchasing decisions. I'm wondering if that's the future of purchasing. Hopefully not.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how they weight the information that they use to make those recommendations and how personalized it is based on your memory and past context. Because in the human sense, what I notice is that if somebody I really trust and respect recommends something, it's almost like a 10x weight on that recommendation versus like a random recommendation, which obviously still infiltrates my brain on some level. So it's like not nothing. And I can imagine LLMs treating different sources like higher or lower weights. And you even see this, I don't know if this is probably correlation, not causation, just given the site footprints of these companies, but like Wikipedia, Reddit, YouTube are like extremely heavily cited within or many sets of prompts. But I could see, obviously you have to map out like a surface area where, touch points matter to the customers you're targeting. But I could still see there being some varying weight of being mentioned in, say, G2 on a credible review site versus a blog, which still has some level of influence, but maybe they'll be weighted differently. Does that make sense at all?
It does. I'm wondering about review sites. Review sites they're businesses. They're not nonprofits. I'm wondering if AI will then look at review sites and the information that are on those review sites and start to realize, is this information actually quality information? Or is it just the company that's paying the most on the review site to get more reviews? And then start to turn around and trust Reddit or Quora more, where it's traditional humans talking to each other without a financial benefit behind it. I don't know if it's ever going to get that smart. Hopefully it does. That would be great, because I personally despise review sites. I think they're not great from the user perspective. It's not great for businesses either. It kind of feels like they're handcuffing you. You can't get reviews, or like, oh, you can't send out asking for reviews unless you pay them, which seems kind of like blackmail-y. But hopefully we get to that point.
And then we'll end up in the same cat and mouse game that SEOs are always in, which is like finding a loophole, exploit the loophole is closed, move to the next loophole. Because to your point, it's like if Reddit becomes this like highly trusted source, there's going to be a marketer who figures out how to crack that, how to exploit that, and then Reddit becomes less trustworthy. So then the LLMs have to be like, all right, what's the next pool of information that's trustworthy, and then on and on. And,
I almost feel like there's already a hack with Reddit that you could do pretty easily.
I am very wary about saying some of my gray hat ideas on the podcast and in my newsletter, but there are many where I'm like, if you wanted to, you could do this thing, and it's right there. I think we've talked about these in private too. Yeah, so let's not give people ideas. That's a big cliffhanger, huh? Digital PR. So you've got this cool background doing digital PR and link building. High level framing, and I'd love to hear more examples of this. It's something I'm really looking into now. AI models looking at brand mentions as the new backlinks. So that's a phrase you hear all the time. Obviously, there's a sort of consensus factor. So being mentioned in relation to categorical terms in high authority places is great, which means you need to appeal to other websites. How do you think about designing digital PR campaigns now? Like, are you still looking at classic link building? Like, has it changed in terms of how you think about this?
I've been doing my link building style since 2016, 2017. It hasn't really changed. I also wouldn't call it traditional link building. I look at digital PR campaigns mostly study-based, trying to do the most ridiculous thing possible to get media coverage most of the time. We can go into some of the campaigns that I've done in the past and explain. I don't know if you would consider that traditional link building. I do not. Most companies don't go to this. Don't do this. I mean, there's definitely some, like Wallet Hub definitely does it. A lot of it, like creditcards.com will do them, but they do lesser quality in my opinion. But I think that link building campaigns are going to shift. A lot of SEOs are already getting out of traditional link building, like guest posting, for instance. Great for link building, or it used to be. Now it's time intense. Like, it's very time intensive. It's also costly because the majority of the time you're having to buy the ability to write a free blog for someone, which is ridiculous. So you have double overhead. You have to write the blog, which could be AI written, or you have to hire a writer, and then you have to pay for the link. Plus, you have to pay for someone to reach out to that blog in the first place to offer to just get a link from usually a medium DA site. You can turn around and do broken link. Hey, you have a broken link on your website. I'd love it if you replaced mine. I can tell you from managing a ton of blogs in my past, I have never once gone and replaced a link with someone else's link because they emailed me. I say thank you, and then I go and delete that broken link and then move on with my day. So there's like
even worse is the one where it's like, hey, I created this ultimate guide. Your readers would really enjoy it. And you're like, all right, like maybe, but I'm not going to go in and spend like 10 minutes just like updating this because my readers will enjoy. It's just like the level of response rate has to be so low for those like mass scale outreach campaigns at this point.
Exactly. Or you have people that troll quoted or Aharo, so help a reporter out, which is back. I'm very happy about that. It's pretty dead right now, but it'll come back eventually. And so you have people that will just sit on there and try to become industry experts so they can get backlinks, which is a good tactic, but you're not getting a ton. Or you can do my style of digital PR, which is running interesting studies that shock people. And then you get hundreds of pickups from media outlets, which have high domain authority. You get your name on trusted sources and specifically your brand name. And it links all back to you.
We have to talk about that. That's something that I'm seeing a lot of success with clients. And then we're investing in it for our own company too. And I'm seeing it play into LLM discovery in an interesting way. But first, just to tie the knot on the link building stuff, the only thing that I could see in terms of effectiveness here with regards to LLMs is certain platforms or functions like ChatGPT search, Perplexity as a whole. They're pulling from search indices in some level. So like you would have to imagine that if links are still an input into rankings, then it's going to rise. It's going to increase your prominence in search engines, which may increase your probability of being cited within an LLM, right? So there's still some like indirect input value.
Yeah, definitely. Especially as it goes more towards AI search, where it's actually using its own version of a search engine. Like, I don't know what OpenAI is going to do, whether or not they decide to make their own search engine, or they're still going to use traditional search engines that exist. I think it still will have value. You'll have value with both backlinks, with helping out your traditional SEO when it comes to AI search, and of course, just brand mentions. Moving on.
Okay, so you're a model. You're effectively creating a campaign or an asset, research-based, I'm assuming, and then running some sense of syndication, outreach, distribution. Tell me what the theory is, what the framework is, and then if you can give me a couple examples.
Yeah, so I can give a background of what I did. So back in 2016, I started a department focusing in these research study campaigns. And what we figured out is the more tangential you can become with a campaign, the better off. What do I mean? If you're thinking about traditional research campaigns, let's say one of my clients at the time was a drug rehab. Okay, great. I can do a simple survey of 1,000 people and ask about their drug usage. That would be a great study. Probably wouldn't be that interesting, though, to readers. And so because of that, journalists are less likely to pick up that story. However, if you spice it up a little bit and you say, oh, I wonder about drug mentions in music, and you take 1 million lyrics from a lyric database, you search for drugs, and then you can start ranking genres. And as soon as you are able to go against what's normally thought, and then you send it out to journalists, a lot of people will pick it up because journalists are waiting on stories that will get them a ton of views. They're paid on ad clicks or clicks on their clicks on their stories from ad revenue. So my traditional way of how I run things and how I run these studies is I start thinking of ideas that's somewhat related to my brand. I start figuring out how can I run these surveys. If it's a survey, bacterial studies, which we can go into, fecal matter survey or studies. I scrape websites for data. I find interesting data. I want to do a survey that you're sitting during Thanksgiving talking to your family about, hey, did you see that on the news that, I'm sure everyone's heard of this, that like 34% of people think that chocolate milk comes from brown cows. That's a marketing stunt. It's always going to be a marketing stunt. And so I want to be the person that people are talking about during Thanksgiving, because that means that I've done a great study. It might not be important to the general public, but it's important on getting backlinks and also media mentions for my brand. And so I think of a study that will do well. I then do the study however way I can. I make infographics that are easy for the media to reuse, usually without our name on them. I then write a write-up, have a clear methodology, and then I start pitching it. The old way that you used to do this is you used to have an embargo date. You would send out a bunch of offers to a bunch of different journalists and say, this study is releasing at this time. That does not work anymore. Journalists don't care about your embargo date most of the time unless you're a huge company, because they have to deal with their editors. They have their own publishing time. If you have breaking news, something could happen. The shift then moved into, all right, let's password protect this page. And I would pitch it as an exclusive. Journalists got pretty smart and realized that a lot of digital PR people were sending an exclusive to 200 plus journalists. Well, it's not very exclusive if everyone has the same study. So what we do now is we simply put the story on our site and we start pitching it off. And we continue to pitch it until someone picks it up. And we do personalized pitching to journalists. And what we hope for is hitting what's called a syndication cycle. I know for a fact, if I get on USA Today, it's going to hit every single other website that's owned by USA Today, as long as it's a good story. You can map out these syndication networks. And so you can, instead of getting one link, one mention on one high domain authority, high trust ranking page, you can get 100 plus, 200. And then what happens is when every other media outlet starts seeing that you're getting a ton of pickups, they want some of that ad revenue. So they pick up that story as well. They link back to you as well. They mention your brand because you're the person that did the study. And it goes through that full syndication cycle where you can get hundreds of links, hundreds of brand mentions from hundreds of different websites. They'll also start sharing it on social. So now you have social talking about your study, mentioning your brand yet again. And now with LLMs and Google being able to search Instagram, that's even better. I'd love to see ManyChat ran the survey on Instagram and it shared 1 million times. Great input for us. So that's the type of digital PR that we're now running. It's digital PR that I've been running for the past 8 years, not 9 years. Oh, it's 2025. But yeah, that's the type of digital PR that I've been running for 9 years, which makes me feel old, but it still works and it's fun. That's another thing, right? You get to work on these awesome campaigns that you don't think that you get to work on awesome campaigns that would normally just be a shower thought. Like you're sitting in the shower thinking of like, oh, I wonder this. If you're wondering something in the shower, I guarantee 20 other people are wondering the same thing, and you probably can turn it into a study.
Okay, so awesome. I have a lot of tactical questions on this. Also, just a quick point on the LLM inclusion. So obviously all of those brand mentions have some association, like you're spreading your brand across like sites and social media. I'm also finding this whole idea of the top of the funnel declining in value. I think the new top of the funnel is often like informational in the sense that people are getting serviced unique data. So with deep research and perplexity, if you're searching for if you're a CMO and you're like, hey, what is the state of the market in terms of AI usage? You might get like a SEMrush report or like a SparkToro or something like that because they put out studies on this. And then it says, according to SparkToro, 25% of people do X, Y, and Z. And that's kind of your first touch point now. So I'm actually seeing it kind of reshape the classic customer journey. Before I go into tactical questions, you mentioned fecal study, and I know what that means, but obviously I can't let that just hang for the audience. So tell me more.
Would you like me to go into the study that I did
Yeah.
Okay. So for the audience, fecal matter is particles of, I don't know how to say this.
Poop.
Yeah, human excrement, I guess.
Yeah.
And so when I was at one of my former companies, we had this genius idea of let's fecal matter swab a festival, a very well-known festival called Austin City Limits. And so we decided to fecal matter swab. It's two weekend festival, which is important for how we're going to pitch this. So on the first weekend, we went in and we swabbed multiple locations, including picnic tables, porta potties as our control, of course, the scooter handlebars, the front rail of the front stage, etc. And then we left the festival. We immediately overnighted that to a lab to see if there was E. coli and fecal matter. We found out that a majority of the locations had fecal matter on them. To me, or to a lot of people, that would be gross. To me, as an SEO that loves digital PR, I rubbed my hands together and like, perfect, we have a story. I wrote up a story really quickly. I then turned around and started pitching it to a bunch of different media outlets. Traditionally, what I would end up doing is I would send emails. We didn't have time for emails. We had a 4 or 3 day period in between the the 2 weekends because it took about 2 days to get the results back. So I started hand calling every single media outlet in the state of Texas to talk about this. I mean, think about the headline. This festival is covered in fecal matter. Great headline for journalists. Most people are going to talk about it. Most people are going to click on that. And so I hand called everyone and said, I have the story. I'm sending it over to you. We got over 150 pickups for that campaign, which is a ton of backlinks. And that was back in 2019. At the time, I wasn't thinking about AI search. No one was. I was thinking about traditional SEO. Ton of high domain authority, follow backlinks directly to our website. And when a lot of journalists asked, why did we do this study? It was simple. We were an Austin-based company and we were worried about general health. That's it. You only have to connect it tangentially and most journalists will pick it up.
Fascinating study. How do you, I think you probably just have like an interesting creative brain, but if you can unpack like how you come up with study ideas, not that one specifically, but you said the shower thought, like, oh, if I'm wondering about something, then other people are wondering about it too. And you kind of implied that you calibrate it to what journalists are interested in. So is this like just having done it for so long that you have a fingertip feel for what would be interesting? Or do you have some process or methodology, let's say for a specific industry, right? Like there has to be some relation to the product. Like if you're a B2B product, like you can't probably go way out and be like, all right, like I'm going to research like bike lanes in New York or something like that. So like, how do you come up with the ideas and like, how certain are you of the hit rate, like that it's going to be successful when you come up with an idea?
So that's one problem with this type of study. You're never going to be certain that you're going to get a ton of links. You can usually be certain you'll get a couple pickups, but you're never going to be certain that something is going to go viral. You can maximize your ability to go viral though, by looking for things that are going to be shocking. You can look into data that people don't normally look for. And then on top of that, it's understanding how journalists actually act and what they're looking for. In today's day and age, journalists are overburdened with how much they have to write. They don't have time to do their own research, and they're being judged on how many clicks they have to their articles. And so when you understand that, you can start focusing on, which is not a good thing, but it is good for marketing, more sensational stories. The more sensational a story is, the more eyeballs you're going to get on that story. It means that the journalist is more likely to pick it up because they're going to get judged. Their performance is based on, are they telling the truth? Are they not getting sued? Of course. But also how many people are going to their article to read it, because that directly translates into revenue for that paper, for that website. So if you understand that, and you can understand human behavior and what people like to read about, you can generally get an idea of what should I actually form the study around. On top of that is familiarizing yourself with what type of data that you can pull for free, what types of surveys you can ask. And you can ask people anything on paid survey websites. I've asked people what their drug dealer looked like and asked them to give me a description, and then handed it over to a crime scene or the people that draw criminals, based off victim reports and had them draw it. People will answer a lot of information. People answer almost anything as long as they're anonymous. There's a ton of websites that you can go on to pay people for survey answers. Looking at government data sources. I've been picked up in, I actually have the, I did a survey based on DUI crashes in the tri-state area for Washington, D.C., Virginia, Maryland, and I think West Virginia. And it was based completely off government information that I pulled, went through that information for Washington Post. I got published in the second page of their Sunday edition magazine because of it. We also got on their website. Journalists need help. It's your job to figure out how to help them. And there's a ton of data sources that you can use for free, such as government data. You can do surveys, which cost a certain amount. And then you start getting more adventurous. You start looking at, okay, what can I bacterial swab, right? So one of the old agencies I was at, they went on airplanes and bacterial swabbed the tray tables, for instance, because they're really dirty, or hotel room beds, dog's mouth versus a baby's mouth, etc. It's just what type of data can you get your hands on, and then how can you mold that into an interesting enough story that the journalist can then unwrap, think of it as a present, and then write their own story about, so they get viewers. It is a nice. It's not a parasitic relationship. It's a mutually beneficial relationship that the marketer and the journalist has for this type of study.
The outreach seems more straightforward to me. It seems like a lot of the alpha is in the ideation and then the feasibility of data collection. And I'm wondering if the same mental model applies to like maybe more boring spaces or like B2B, but maybe to a lesser degree of sensationalism. I'm trying to extract like maybe a high level heuristic, which it's kind of like the aberration or the surprise factor from the expected, right? Like I can imagine, I don't know, if like you're making a design platform that's like AI centered or something, like a Lovable or something like that. Like you could there's probably a lot of question marks in people's minds about like quality and ethics and like whatever. And if you can find data either through attitudinal surveys or usage or whatever, if it has like a gap between what people would expect and what the data says, then there's going to be interest there. Is that like a fair mental model to apply this across? Like, because a lot of these are like consumer examples. Like I wouldn't do the, fecal study for like a CRM software, but I have to imagine there's still angles that would be picked up, maybe not viral in like the local news, but does that mental model map?
Yes, it does. The best way to think about it, right, is when you're coming up with ideas for less interesting campaigns, they're still interesting to the right group of people. You always want to think about the headline. What is the headline that you want to pitch? Because that's what journalists are picking up. They're picking up what's a headline that I can get people to click on. Mm-hmm. And so if you can think about that for a AI design website, you could talk about the ethics. And then the headline could be only 20% of people have, or let's say only 2% of Americans believe that using AI for design is unethical. Mm-hmm. That's a huge headline.
Right.
And you can not only pitch that to industry-specific papers, you can start pitching that out to journalists at larger publications. You then have to design the survey around that to get the headline, not that you want, but you think will happen.
Well, I think it's the story or the narrative that you're seeking, right? And sometimes that I've seen it in like encapsulated in a single image, which I feel like is probably the most powerful, which I don't know if this was a study or if there was somebody on LinkedIn that just posted this, but that like decoupling of impressions and click-through rate in Google Search Console. It's like people call it the great decoupling, where everybody's seeing impressions rise, but clicks falling, primarily due to AI overviews, basically increasing impressions and usage and all of that stuff. But it's like that image, you're like, oh, that tells like a massive story across all of SEO.
Yes. And that also goes into infographic design, which we can get into, but it's part of the selling the story to journalists. You brought up that one image. Your ultimate goal when you ever whenever you do this study and you take this data, is you want to create an image that's easily understood in 5 seconds or less. Mm-hmm. You don't want something that's overly complicated. And your example did a great job of that. You can see it. Most SEOs understand Google Search Console. They're seeing what's happening. They read a little bit of text. They got it.
Mm-hmm.
If you have too complicated of graphs, you're going to hit some issues. It's not going to get picked up.
Stuff is fascinating. I wanted to switch real quick on your last point on the forum. You'd mentioned, I love this point, stop listening to LinkedIn SEO influencers. I would say like beyond SEO, like influencers in general, it's kind of like a lot of noise, a lot of hype. SEO is hard. It's technical. It's strategic. It's still one of the most important growth channels. Moreover, you, I think, were listed as one of the top 10 SEO creators on LinkedIn. And within a piece of content summing that up, it was basically, it said you because you rip up the template, and I like that phrase. Tell me more about that. Like, yeah, I don't know how you want to take that, but like maybe this typical LinkedIn influencer approach, which is like probably based on hype or hyperbole or fluff, and you have a totally different style with how you put content out into the world.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a problem with LinkedIn for years, in the sense that I used to only use it when hey, I need to hire someone, better go to LinkedIn. Hey, let me go to LinkedIn because I'm looking for a new job, or I'm interested in changing what company I'm currently working for. That's not a great use for a social media channel. And at the end of the day, LinkedIn is a social media channel. I actively hated going on my home feed, because you see, it's like, imagine you go into a vegetable or like a market, and you're expecting there to be both shoppers and also people selling their wares. And instead you're walking in and everyone's just standing on a podium yelling at each other, trying to sell the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a nightmare. You would immediately leave that store because no one would want to go there. And that's what LinkedIn to me was. I then started working with a coworker of mine. Her name's Ashley Ambersalva, and she's the first person that I've seen that actually just writes whatever she wants to write on LinkedIn, and is uniquely herself. You can be both professional and yourself at the same time. And a lot of people don't realize that on LinkedIn. They start pretending like they're someone that they're not. And I know a lot of these people, and I know that they are not their LinkedIn persona at all. And so I just started writing about who I am. I think I'm funny. Some of my followers think I'm funny, so I'm going to write some of my funny unhinged takes. It's satire based, but it works. And I looked at it as a way to de-stress after a hard day and just write something. I also like the fact that it's on LinkedIn in particular, because everyone's trying to be as professional as they possibly can.
Yeah.
And I turn around and write a post about how when I lived in Orlando, I would watch kids get attacked by swans every morning while drinking a cup of coffee. And pieces like that are different. They're different from the norm, but they also do extremely well because they're different. No one wants everything to be the same, which goes back, it loops right back around to all the blogs have the same template for SEO. No one wants to see that. So I started gaining a following very quickly based on the fact that I just started being myself on LinkedIn, which is so shocking and so easy to do, that you just be yourself. But realistically, that's what LinkedIn turned into, just a bunch of people pretending to be something that they're not. And when you start seeing through the curtain of everyone's just, I mean, it's pretty obvious now I look back, but everyone's just trying to sell something to each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a good experience. I want to make a relationship with someone and know that I can trust them before I want someone to try to sell me something. I've written posts about this. I call them vultures. Whenever someone comes out and they immediately add me and they then turn around, try to sell me a product or try to give me coaching.
The worst.
My favorite are the career coaches, because it's like, hey, I see that you're really successful and you have a big following, but let me tell you how much of a screw up you are. You should buy from me. No, thank you. I don't know who you are. Why are you messaging me? But yeah, that's the way that I look at LinkedIn at this point.
I like it. It's like you're walking into a room, a networking event, and everybody's in a blazer and a blue shirt, handing out business cards, and you show up in a Hawaiian shirt, and you're like, "Aren't we having fun? Like, what are we doing here?" Right? I've gone in waves with LinkedIn. I think it's very valuable in the sense that I've built a lot of connections there, and I've met people through LinkedIn. But I'll go through kind of troughs of disillusionment where I do see that like everybody's selling something, which I get it. Like you know, you have an incentive to post via like some sort of value that you're expecting to receive. I think my bigger pet peeve was just this tone that people strike on there, which is very like you suck at what you're doing. It's very FOMO based. It's like, oh, like SEO died. Like I built an AI agent that like did, it's like 10 million in pipeline in the first month. And then you just go on there and you're like, am I an idiot? Like, what, am I just like so bad at my job? Like, what the hell? and I realize that there's some mimetic desire that happens too, in the sense that if I consume too much of that content, I start thinking like that becomes my water in the David Foster Wallace sense. That becomes like the contextual water in which my ideas have to swim. And then if I turn that off for a while, I start to have my own thoughts again. And I'm like, oh wait, like we're providing value for our clients, not for the LinkedIn people that I'm trying to impress, right? And you can still, I think, tune out some of the noise, and like you can filter it, and like you can mute people who you don't like or whatever, and like your posts, right? And you can customize your feed, and you can get value that way. But at times, I've realized that it sinks me into this like echo chamber, or I don't know what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can definitely see that. I think the most useful thing about LinkedIn at this point is what you were talking about, which is connections. Like you've made great connections, you get to know people, and that actually leads to real business outcomes, in my opinion. I don't really understand the traditional sales guy idea of connections, which is I'm going to continuously annoy people in their inbox. I also don't understand the LinkedIn influencer where consistently they're going to tell the same story on their like over and over again every couple of weeks. And then when you look into that story, it's part of the story. So I won't say the person's name. There's a very well-known SEO who consistently talks about how backlinks don't matter in the world of SEO, which is factually incorrect, and talks about only writing short content, thin content. If people follow this information, they're going to get penalized from Google, but he wants to sell his short-term SEO contract. If he can sign up for 6 months, they don't get penalized. Great. He looks great. He leaves their SEO tanks. He looks even better. He looks like he's the guy that because he left and was no longer their client is the reason that they tanked. And so that's the problem that I have, is that there's a ton of different SEOs in the industry consistently just giving out bad information. And yet they're some of the largest SEOs in the industry on LinkedIn. And it's just because they're the loudest. And that's when I decided to just not care about.
Well, those are two orthogonal skills, like the being good at LinkedIn and being good at SEO. So I hope like there has to be some level of like media literacy for people to understand that. And I think it's not always easy to do, because to your point, I know who you're talking about, and I'll see those and I'm like, this is a good LinkedIn post. Like looks like a good story, right? Thankfully, I've seen some of the work, and I know the full story. But it's not always it's not always easy to discern who's really good at storytelling or that style of copywriting, or it's even like a product marketing type of mindset. It's like I create an enemy, I have a narrative, like I have hooks, like I have like proof points. But that doesn't necessarily mean they're good at the thing they are talking about.
Yeah, exactly. I think some of the best SEOs that I know are some of the quietest people on LinkedIn. They don't have a good presence. And that's the thing. A lot of SEOs are very quiet people in general. They're not loud and boisterous. And the way that you get to meet them is actually having personal conversations. And so I think that actually, like, I don't want to keep on looping back to the type of content that I make but a lot of the conversations that I have on LinkedIn have nothing to do about business. They're more personal. I'll post something that's very personal about me, about how like I'll have imposter syndrome, or how I was diagnosed with a disability recently and how that's affected how I view the workplace. And they'll message me talking about the same thing. We'll have an open conversation. And now this is someone that I have a good relationship with. And they're also awesome at their job. And so that's the type of connection I want to have. I don't want to be loud and boisterous and be like, look how good at SEO I am. Try to sell someone on that and then fail them. I'd rather just be who I am, which is someone that's good at their job and also a genuine human being.
I think that's the main point that I wanted to pull from you is it's not necessarily about your way of doing things. In fact, it's actually the opposite, which is if everybody did your way of doing things, that would become a template or something too. It's more the idea to abstract your way out of, taking a course and being like, oh, I'm supposed to post 5 times a week. I'm supposed to comment on 5 posts a day. I'm supposed to use this format, this hook, this blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, who are you? Like, what do you want to do? Because I see different ways of people doing that. Maria Delano is really good. She does a lot of personal stuff too. And then John Henry Shirk, I think you might know, he's an SEO as well. I like him because I'll have long convos on the phone with him where we like dive into like crazy detailed stuff. But on LinkedIn, he'll just post like once every week or every 2 weeks or like whenever. And it's just like this little chime in. It's like seeing this in the data, like, question mark here, like, but it's something from the work. And I'm like, oh, that's like if any LinkedIn coach ever saw him, they'd be like, all right, so you're doing okay. But what you have to do is you got to do 5 more posts every week and you got to do this, this, and this. And then it would ruin the magic of what he's doing because it's not him,
Yeah, exactly. I think that showing up how you are as a human being, like I'm loud, I'm weird, and that's why I show up, but other people show up how they want, and they don't all fit the same like cookie cutter shape that of what we expect on LinkedIn, which usually what you expect on LinkedIn from that cookie cutter shape is the thing that everyone gets annoyed at. I actually have a good friend and colleague of mine named Tristan Harris, does great work. And I want to get him to start posting on LinkedIn. Hopefully, fingers crossed he will, because he's one of the best SEOs I know. And he'll start sharing information, maybe of things that he's finding out. But it's getting people. I look forward to I look forward to helping people feel confident enough to start posting on LinkedIn, being themselves. A lot of people have stage or performance anxiety, which is strange because it's a post on LinkedIn. I don't understand it, but other people do. Hopefully people realize with what I'm doing that they can just be themselves and people like them for it.
I love that. Well, hey, awesome conversation. I'm glad we finally got to do this. It's long overdue. Before we jump off, any places you want to point people to? Obviously your LinkedIn, like any other links or references?
Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn, I'm also the global head of global head of SEO at ManyChat. It's MANY, not MINI. I realize I'm from Florida and I say mini and mini, one with an A, one with an I. But yeah, I guess I can give a plug on what we do. We do social media automation, mostly for content creators and also for small businesses that are on social media. Best way to understand, I guarantee you've seen us. You've never heard of us before. Best way to know that you've seen us is if you ever see someone say, comment this word down below and I'll DM you something. That's usually ManyChat.
I've seen that a couple times. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much.
Thank you.